Hey, Fitzy here, back at it again with another one. It was only a couple of pieces. There was nothing to it. It was already welded up before. All you gotta do is just tidy it up, Tony. Yeah. Ends up cutting it all out, making it all up again. It's not one thing, it's another. Stick around. Well, it's time to get back on the old cab again. In the last couple of videos, I went and done the door bottom on this one here. The plan is here now is I want to get this stuff all cleaned up, get this here section down here repaired, get this section down here repaired. You can see there's a bad gap down here. I got to adjust that. This piece was welded in it before. I got to tidy that up. I got a hole here I got to fill in. Over here I got a gas tank door I got to fill in, because it's got a rear tank in it now, and I got to tidy up this down here because there's a problem. Hey, Venus. So first thing I'm going to get at here now, I'm going to go ahead now and get this here all grinded up and get that ready so I can actually start cutting and closing up that gap there. So I got the door taken off and I got it all cleaned up here. What I'm noticing here is that, like, I don't need to be taking all this section out of here, okay? This here was a decent repair done to it. All this inside corner is a mess, okay? Now, I was going to split it up through here and just bend it back, but the distance here has gone wider in here. This entire corner section is bad. Now, if you look at it up here, the way it's designed, it comes across, it's got a lip on it, and it goes in, then it ends, okay? There's a lip there. I'm going to build another section just like this and probably come over to here somewhere and build a full section like this here that'll overlap here. That'll fit this here section like this, and then it's going to slot it down behind here. I'm going to cut all this out of the way, up here, down here, because none of this is any good to me because I can't use it for a template or nothing like that. Is in my way, and I want to be able to put the piece in behind it, notch it for this hinge, and fit it in place so that I got to spot weld it down through here, which is good. It's not welded in behind, and then I'll weld it across the top here and down through the middle here, and that'll give me a nice clean edge, and I wouldn't have to worry about me having to build the actual edge itself coming up through here because it'll already be bent up. So I'm going to go ahead now and get the grinder down, cut this stuff out of it and see what's in behind it and clean it all up and just get the metal out of the way. So I got that all trimmed out of the way. Here's the piece I cut out. It's no good trying to repair what's there. A bit of stuff was in that corner too. There's an actual drain hole there, but yeah, bit of stuff came out of it. So now that I got that there figured out and chopped out of the way, I don't have to worry about trying to split any of that. I can get in behind this now and dolly all this up to where I'm happy with it, and then I can start making this piece. All I'm going to do is take a piece of metal and concentrate on this inside bend here, okay? I want to get this bend down and this bend up, but I'm going to have it longer here, have it longer here. I'm going to make it longer this way as well, going from here to here. And then that way I can trim it around the hinge, and then, you know, if I got to move it up or down, I can, and not have to worry about like the cutting at the length here, and then trying to trim it around the hinge, and then find out that it's too short down here, okay, or too, you know, that type of thing. Everything I always make bigger than what it's supposed to be, and I trim it to fit when it starts fitting nice, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead now and get this all dollied up here, and start figuring out a piece of metal for there. Well, so much for dollying that up. I got into it, and there's a low spot up here, very bad spot, and I start tapping it from the back side, and you can see I broke through it. And I started looking at that, telling it's more work than what it's worth there now, and there's a crown on this here that I think has been all heated up and shrank up, so I decided to hack it out. But I'll go ahead and I'll get this cleaned up here and start sizing up the piece I'm going to make to fit there. So I got it all cleaned up here. I got some welding I got to do. I'm not worried about it right now. What I want to do is I want to get the panel made first, so that way then I can figure out where everything got to go and whatnot. I'm not going to turn around and overthink this and make a template and all this type of stuff. All I'm interested in is having a piece of metal that I can bend this on. That's going to be long enough that I can cut all this out of it. So I took a measurement from about here and came over, went over to here, and I come from about here all the way down to the bottom there, and I got a measurement. And I took that measurement and put it over onto a piece of steel. This is all I did. 9 by 12. That's it. Just simple numbers. This is bigger than what I need. It's going to have to be trimmed up after the fact, but I want to have a lot of material on it so I can actually work on making sure that everything's going to fit right on this inside edge first before I turn around and worry about the outside corner with the shape that comes down like that, right? So I'm going to go ahead now, cut this out, and get this cleaned up. So I got the piece all grinded up. I removed all the material off both sides of this here because I wanted to have it as thin as I possibly can. I didn't want nothing because when I goes to put it in the brake, I want to have very, very sharp edges. So now what I got to do is I got to go figure out how I'm going to make my bends on the end here. So right here, I got a lip on the inside. It comes over to here, tips in, comes out to here. But this bend here is pretty simple. This bend here is pretty simple. This one here is tricky because it's only about 1/4 inch, okay? So I've thought about doing this one first inside or doing this one and then trying to bend that one there, but I think it's going to run into some issues when I start getting it in there trying to bend up pieces. Like I thought about the best way to do this. Well, this one here is going to be trouble no matter what I does. And the reason why I say that is because the brake will only break a small enough section that this here won't fit in it, right? I'll show you. This ledge right here is the width that I can actually bend. Now I can actually rest stuff on this here and bend it up. Now between this brake here and this brake here, I might be able to bend that bend, but I'm not going to overthink this now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bend the first bend up, then the second bend, and then figure it out from there. Now this is only about 1/2 inch wide. I'm going to give it a full inch for now and give it some leeway so that way I can trim it to fit after. I don't like trying to make this bend perfect because if I bend it too short, this is too narrow, it doesn't look right down here. I can cut this to the width I want if the angle is a bit more. So I'll mark it out, I'll mark an inch and I'll make a bend. And then I'll measure this one up here and I'll make that bend. So I went ahead and I marked off an inch and then I scribed it up along there. So that's going to be my first bend. So I'm going to do one bend at a time. There you go. Now, before I go any further, you can see that I got the bend put in it. It's not exactly perfect. I'm going to work this bend here first before I does anything else. I'm going to tighten up this edge here because it was a little bit, it's a little bit round because where's the heavier gauge steel. But because of that door edge, the way that's designed, I want to have nice sharp edges. So I'm going to take each individual bend that I make and I'm going to hammer form and tighten up the corners on these here. Now as you look at this here, you can see I got my I-beam out and I'm going to use the edge of this here now and I'm going to hammer this down here, flip it around, hammer it in again just to tighten up this little edge. I'm going to do every bend, and each bend I do, I'm going to do the same process. Now you look at the way this is here, and you come over here, you can see that as I'm tightening up. See how small the shadow is here, and how wide the shadow is here? I'm tightening up this corner. I'll continue on now, get that hammered up. I ran the grinder over just to knock the hammer marks and that off it. This stuff is pretty thick. That's the reason for it, but you can actually see the nice type edge on that now. So that's now the first bend. I'm going to go on now and measure the width of the one on the truck and mark it out, scribe it, and put the second bend in it. So here's my problem. You can see now the angle's down over this here. There's my line. And there's what it's going to grab it to. Tap that back as best I can and go ahead and make the bend and see what it's like. And then I'll dress this edge here. I'll hammer this edge tighter if I got to. But yeah, okay, let's do that. So here's what I'm up against. It don't look half bad. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to turn this over here on the I-beam. I'm going to push this edge flat, bending the metal this way here to bring it back, so to make this here narrower on the inside here. And I'll hammer form this section here now, so it gets it'll tighten up this edge here, but I'll put all the metal up here and try to narrow up this section here. So now that I'm happy with that, you saw me over there and I laid it flat. I start hitting it here, and then I start hitting it here on the actual I-beam, so that I was squishing all this together here to tighten up that section. It doesn't take much to tighten it up, but you can see how crisp them edges are now coming in through there to make that edge. It's kind of hard to get a crisp edge on a bender unless it's very slight metal, and this is heavier gauge metal, so it's going to be harder to do it with. So now that I got that done, the fun one begins. I got to bend the very last one, which is this one right here. That one right there. It's very thin. I'm probably going to have to use my old brake for that. Let's get that one bent up. Now on this bender you can see it's flat. My hinge mechanism is in behind it. That's the reason why I built it like this here, is for getting these tight bends, okay? But when you bend this here, the problem with it is that you're trying to bend another piece of metal straight down off it here. Or it's flat from here, sorry, flat from here. But it's going to grab it right here now. It's going to want to bend it. So it's going to want to try to straighten this bend out. And this is going to be, two of these are going to fight against each other to put this bend in it. But I'm going to go ahead and do it, and then I'm just going to have to dolly it. Let's see what happens here now. You can see where it grabs here, see? Oh, that's going pretty good. That's fine. Never even disturbed the other one. Interesting. Cool. Probably where I tightened it up. Alright, that come out pretty good. Look. But you can see how big that is now. And I'm looking at the roll here. You can see that the roll is above the line here. If I can get the line on it. Yeah, right there. You can see the line right there. That's up on this here, and then it rolls off of that there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flatten this section out by turning it upside down here. And I'll hit it down along here and flatten this out along here to sharpen up this corner here. How nice that fits. Now over here, it's sticking off, so I got to tighten up this corner here, bend it a bit more, so when I lays this flat like that there will lay flat across there. So I'll get that straightened away, and then we can come over and test fit it again. There you go. That's fitting way better. Not overthinking it. I actually just wanted to get all the bends made first. They're all made. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it up so it fits around this hinge, but I'm going to leave a little bit long on the bottom and have it a little bit long on the top, so that way I got movement up and down and that. So I'm going to trim it to fit that hinge there next. Now if you look at how these are cut, it just comes up on the ends, and it cuts in the thickness of the metal here, of the hinge, sorry, and then they go back up again, then they're notched out again, and they wrap around again. That's all they do, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing down here now. I'm going to mark it here, mark it down there, and then cut it out, the thickness of that there, so they can slide it behind us. So laying this in place here now. I'm not going to worry about this here. I'm going to move it down a bit to give myself a little weight. I got lots up here on top. And I'm just going to mark this here, there, and there. And I'll cut the section out here, right here, and I'll come over here. I'll come in the thickness of the actual hinge, and I'll cut that like that as well. I'll cut that section out of her, and that should tuck in behind the hinge there. So all I did is I trimmed it out here. Now that'll fit right in there like so. And I got a bit of movement there, lots of excess here, lots of excess here. Now, what I want to do is I want to get this here, this section here, to flow with the door. So the next section we're going to do now, I'm going to need the door to do it. So he knows that this here is going to have to fit about here somewhere. So I'm just centering up this here on the hinge, because I know where the hinge is to on the truck. And I'm going to bring this in flush to here. Now it's not half bad, but you can see it's not perfectly straight. The door has a crown on it. So I got to put a bit of a crown on this panel here to make this work right here, like so. That will probably be about right there when it's all said and done. But I need to put a little bit of a crown on this here and get this here from being flat. Now what I'm after is to get this here, the crown, in through here. I need to get a little bit of a curvature in that. Nothing high tech about this. Just a big hammer. And just start working it. And you can see there now, look. I got a crown on it. I too much of one. But nothing high tech about that. So you look at that there now, and you can see there's a crown on that panel. Oh, too much of a crown. I need to put some crown begun in her. That's better. Just a few love taps. Just need a small bit of a crown on it. So I'm here doing test fitting and fitting and stuff like that. What I did is I cut about an inch off the top of it. What I'm trying to do here now is I want to do a cut to fit right here in this corner, so I can actually put this in a position. I'm going to put a cleco out here. That way I can hold it in place. That way I can actually put the door back on and get this here to line up to where I'm happy with it. Not going to worry about trimming none of this off inside here yet, or trimming any of this off yet. I'm more concerned about now getting this to fit in here and get my door seam right. I got that trimmed off, you can see it there. Now this here is not fitting very good, so I'm going to dolly that now and get that to fit better than that, so I'm happy with this cornered edge here. Not going to worry about nothing else, none of that down there. I want to get this here transition nice. So I'm here now and I got it all trimmed up. And I'm doing test fitting and I dollied this corner here and dollied this edge here so both of these lines up nice. I clamped it in place. Problem with it is that vice grips is in the way of putting the hinge on or putting the door on. So I went and put a cleco right close to the edge here, so if I can move this back and forward here, it's going to be able to, it won't open as much. If I put a cleco back here and I had to move this way here, this gap is going to open right up. So hopefully I'm close enough there that I can tweak this enough to get my gaps right. So I can put probably a second cleco up here so I can start turning around and start fitting everything else in there. So I'm going to take these vice grips off now. And I'm going to fit the door on and see what my gap is like. My first test fit. I find the gap here is a little bit wide and a little bit wide down the bottom here. I try to push it forward, but I'm bringing it up in the back of the hinge here, the piece that I trimmed off. So I'm going to take it off now and trim that up and get this to close up. But this way here is fine. This here is pretty good this way. Going across this way here. I'm pleased with that. So I'll go ahead now and trim this up and go for another test fit. So I'm here now, I got it all trimmed up and I got it fitting where I want it. And I can get my gap set up on the bottom side, but the problem I'm having is I'm up here trying to hold this in place, trying to drill a hole, and it's not going where I want it to go. There's no way I can clamp this on here. There's nothing in behind it here to clamp to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it up in place here now, get it where I want it. I'm going to put a couple of tack welds across the top here, and if I'm happy with everything that's on the go there, then I'm going to drill 2 new holes right here. Then I got a way that I can put it on and take it off, and I'll just cut them welds off. So all I did is I got this where I was happy with the seam, and then I put a couple of tacks on it, and then once that's done I'll put 2 clecos in it, and I'll cut these clear, and now I can return these to these 2 anytime I want, because I want to get down here. I want to cut this off the right length down here now, get that done, and that way I know that when I clecos this back and thing I can figure out the inside. Now I got to do some work on the inside of this here, reinforce this lower hinge mount, but I want to get this panel pretty well made before I done that. So it's a matter of capping it, welding on. Alright, now I can take that off there now. I'm going to leave that there first. I'm going to get down here and I'll mark this across the bottom here so I can cut it off. So I've been here now. I got the welds let go, and now she's only held on with the clecos, and I've been doing test fit, trimming, test fit, trimming. I have it marked on the back side here, and I also have it marked over here where it got to be trimmed off. And what I want to do is I want to get this here fitting where I think it's going to go, and that way I can just turn around and take it off, weld the inside all up, put this on, weld all this up here. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to trim this off here. On the inside here I'm going to do some trimming as well, but I want to roll this edge. You can see there's a roll on this edge. So instead of welding it along here, I'm going to weld it inside on this edge here, because all this down here was all gone. And I'm going to put a little bit of a rolled edge down through here. That way I can actually weld it on this side here instead of over here. I may have to cut this here on a bit of an angle because this is too short here for the roll. So if I come back to here somewhere, you can see it gets longer. So I'll probably cut this on an angle this way here. I'll probably mark that now while I'm here so I know. Just like that. That way I got enough there to roll off that edge. Alright, I'll take that off there now and start trimming everything up. As you can see, that's the way I got it marked. Now all I'll do is I'll come in here now, I'll come back over here now, I'll mark it about a ½ inch or so, and I'll cut it off there straight, and I'll leave that there, and that way I can roll that little bit there. That'll get me around the corner that I'm after. So I'll get this all trimmed up here now and work on getting this edge rolled over. So I've gone ahead, trimmed off the other ends. I trimmed this back here. there's the mark that I had there. I didn't like the way it was shaped down here, so I'm going to just work with what's there, make it look symmetrical. I got one of my homemade T-dollies. So I'm going to clamp that in the vise. And all I'm going to do is that edge there, I'm going to roll it over on T-dolly. And there she is. I got it rolled over on that edge there, up along there, and then I got it all marked over here now. I got that all trimmed off. That's all fitting nice down through there. I went and drilled a few holes in that there because this is how they were welded on. They weren't welded in here. They were only welded in along here. So now that I got that done, I'm happy with all that. That's all ready to be welded in. I just got to do the cut butt across here, and that'll fit right in there. And I think I'm just going to do a lap joint down here because where it's on the corner there, it's on the front side there, trying to do the cutting butt in along there, trying to get all that fitting just so. I'd be quite content with just a little lap joint because it's where it's on the corner. It's not like it's out on the structural part of it, out in front of it. There's a fender goes along here too, you got to remember as well. So this is all in the inner fender well. So I'm going to take that off there now. The section down here is missing. I'm going to go ahead now and get all that welded in and get this all cleaned up so I can actually get this welded on. As you can see down here, there's nothing here. I'm going to weld a piece there. I'm going to re-weld all this up, give all that nice and strong there. And over here, I'm going to make a cut up through here. So when it turns around, it does the lap around the side of it there, I can still get this piece out. It's only a small sliver there, so I'm not going to too much worry about it. Just makes life a lot easier trying to do that inside edge. All this was replaced before, it's all welded up. So I'm just piecing it back into it, just instead of having to weld out in the middle here, I'm going to put it around the corner. All right, let's get some pieces made up, welded in. So I got this now, I painted everything inside, and I got it all prepped, and I'm getting ready to now weld this in place. I'm going to fit it up, I'm going to put a tack weld here in this corner, and then I'm going to put the door back on and do a test fit, and then I'm going to push in on, make sure that's in the right location, and I'm going to weld this spot weld down here, down this corner, and so then I'll know then everything is in this place, and then I'll start working on doing the cutting butt. So I went ahead and I tacked it up on the top corner, and when I started fitting it down on the bottom, down here, I wasn't fussy on it. So I had to take the cleco out of it there and tweak it a small bit to close up the gap a small bit. So and then I went ahead and I welded that here. I'm happy now where that gap is too up through there. I'm going to take the door off now and weld up that section in there and get that done, and then put the door back on, make sure I'm happy with it all, and then I can continue on finishing everything else. So I got that all welded up, and I got it all dressed up, and I got the door back on, and I'm happy with the seams. Everything looks good. So now all that's left to do is to weld up the rest of this here. Now across here, I'm just going to do the cutting butt across here. I think it's a small enough piece. It's interfering with me there now. I think I'm just going to hold it in place there now and put a little tack on it there, and then trim that off. Oof. Don't that welding look lovely? Ouch. She was thin there. And I don't know, but it seems like the metal on this gray part of it, the main structure of the body, I think it was just being worked way too much and give me a lot of troubles. That seemed like it was solid there, and then when I started welding it just blew it up and I had to chase it up to there. But I got everything else welded in, all the bottoms welded in. All I gotta do now is grind all it up and dress it up, see what it looks like. I'll get that done. And there you have it. All welded in. All grind dressed up. This is just a lap weld down through here. Right, this here has been all replaced before, and it's a decent job done on it. I don't want to go get too involved in it. So, but I got that all done now. That's best kind. I grinded that off, had to re-weld it, blew a couple more holes up here, had to re-weld it again. So it's not like I just grinded it off and it was perfect. No, that's not how it was. So I did a bit of re-welding, some dollying, that type of stuff to get that just nice. So I'm happy with that there. So now let's move on to smaller things. Hole there. I think I'm going to weld them up. And this one here, they seems pretty worn, okay? I might just weld it up and then we can drill that again because I'm pretty sure there's a hole down here got to be drilled as well for the fender to bolt on. But I want to clean that out. I don't know what's in there. It looks to be pretty messed up. I'll round it out, weld a piece in there. I'll weld that up because that there is supposed to be for a bump stop that goes on the hood. That's wore thin there. They can re-drill it again later. And this here must have had a light on the side. So a couple other small holes up top. So let's get this section here all finished and weld it up. I'm not going to do nothing with this here. That looks to be factory. It was for some sort of induction system for the air or whatever. I'm not going to get into cutting that out and weld that in because the fender goes down through here anyway, and that's the wheel well. So I'll just weld up the small spots, that's all. There's a number of different ways of welding up these holes. This first one here is pretty small. I have a piece of brass here, okay? Clean the end of it off here so you can actually see that it is brass. Looks like copper, but it's not as brass. I've had this a lot of years. I've had it around, and it's just for this reason. I'll hold that on the back side of that there and weld to this here. The MIG weld won't stick to this here, so I can actually build this up here without having the wire feeding into it. And that's that welded up. Let that cool off. This one here, how am I going to weld that one up? Let's weld these up differently. Here's another way to weld up a hole. What I got is an old bolt, and I chopped it off so the threads and everything are gone. You didn't have to do that, but I just find it a lot cleaner because this part of the bolt is thicker than the end of it. And I just got one that will fit in the hole. Turn my welder up a bit. Tries to be prepared. Blade was too small. I got it cut off now. I'll just flatten that out. The issue you have with this one here is the bolt is so thick When you grind it off, you've got chances of thinning out the metal around it. I got her made thin there, yeah, that's what I thought. Move on. Now I could put the brass behind this here to get that, but I'm trying to show you different ways of welding up holes. Now this one here is a little more trouble because when I grinded it off, I grinded it a bit thin, and I had to turn the welder up to get penetration into the bolt, and that burnt holes. And that's another way of doing it. Now I got one more here to weld up, and this one here you saw me running through it with a step bit because it was very thin, and I had to open it up, and I'm looking for the thickness of the metal to be strong again, so that's why I opened it up as big as I did. You could have turned around, just put something in behind it, try to weld it up. You put a piece of plate behind it, weld over it, and leave the piece inside. That's another way of doing it. This one here is my personal favorite that I'm going to do here now that I've been doing a lot here lately. So let's get this one welded up. Now this is my personal favorite. It's what I've been using a lot here lately. Old scrap piece steel. You can use a coat hanger. I've used this in the past. I just find it unstable when you're actually milling down the end of it. So every now and again, if the hole is small enough, I'll use a coat hanger. But what I got done here is I got the top chopped off a bolt. I'm going to take that there now and lay that right there and weld it on. Not getting fussy with fancy size pieces or anything like that. Once a piece is big enough. Got that welded on, I'll just cut it off. Put on the go up, it's going to be hot. Now I got to put in the drill. Spin around there. What I'm going to do is grind it off, and the key to these here is you can make them any size you want, okay? You could use the washer or anything like that. The problem with the washer is you're going to find the exact size washer, or you can do the same thing with this here. All I'm doing is using a piece of steel, weld it on it, and then I'm going to make it round. I'm not worried about it. You see that spinning? That's all oblong. I'm not worried about that. It's still going to cut it off straight. I'll go over and test fit this now and see how it fits. Needs to be cut down more. So I'll cut it down and I'll test fit it till it fits in there. That fits there good now. just watch your heat. It's lower now too. Gone. So I'm going to go on now, get all these here grinded up. I got a couple more spots I want to weld up on this side here before I move on to the back. I'll get them done, get them grinded up, and then we can start on the cabin. So I got everything grinded up. I got all my repairs done. All the holes are grinded up. I come up here and I had some repairs here, small holes I had to do. And then I got up into this. I wasn't going to film in that. I had a couple of pinholes there and ended up putting a whole piece in across there. So that was a nightmare. I just went ahead then and noticed there was some spot welds and everything down along here that had to be welded up. And I got a few there still got to be grinded off. And I tied it up inside the door. Had a look around, made sure everything was okay in here. Right, cleaned up my seams up along there. I still got to do some work to the edge of the door, the lips down here. I'll do that when I take the door off again. But I'm happy with that. I cleaned up my edges here. So I got a nice seam down through there now. And the door meets the bottom down there nice. So that's all done. I'm happy with all that there. I got to dress the door a small bit. So now I'm going to move over here and start working on getting this straightened away right here. I got to weld this up and I got to straighten this up. Probably we'll start with that first. So I went ahead and I grind this off. I noticed there's been repairs down to here and there's a piece or something welded in here. I'm not going to be concerned about that. Some people will probably make a template of this here, make a little piece to fit in there. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take one piece now, about 6 inches. I'm going to cut a piece now about 6 inches by about 5 and cut a final piece and cut out to fit in there. Got a piece cut out. That'll go here somehow. What I got to do now is I got to curve it. So I'll go over the pipe anvil and bend it up. I got too much junk around. So this is what I got curved up here now. That can fit on over that there. I can dolly that up a bit more. I'm going to work on that now. This here do have a small bit of a crown this way here. So I got to turn around and get this from being flat to crown next. So I played around with it a bit and I turn around and I just round out the edges. I kept fitting it, testing it and whatnot. That's a pretty good fit there now. What I'm doing now is I just want to put in as much of this or as little of this as I possibly can. There's a lot of damage down here, so I got to come down as far as here. And I figured I can almost come right to the edge there. And there. But I got to come right over to here on this side. So now I have this in place here now. Bring that down to there. Like so. Mark that there. Mark that there. Like so, like that. I'll take that over now and trim that up. That's much better there now. I gotta do some cleanup over here. But I think that's what I'll do. Now some people are hung up on a round patch and a round hole. I'm never concerned about that. I always found square patches easier to install, easier to dress. I don't mind corners, okay? People talk about you shouldn't have corners, you shouldn't have corners. Just makes it harder to do if you've got round corners. You can do it, but I prefer to do it this way. Now this one here got it clamped in place here. This is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to do the cutting butt on this here. Now usually I would go around, tack the piece in place, and then I do the cutting butt. The problem you got here is that when you're on a curved panel and you're getting this panel chasing this panel here, what's going to end up happening is this panel got to start moving over this way here. So if you welded this corner here and start doing the cutting butt over here, you're going to end up with a dimple right here in the upper section of this panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start welding over here, doing this here, and I'll come across here, and I'll come across here, and I'll start bringing myself across the panel to meet over here. But I got it in there. Looks good going up along here. Right. You looking around here. Looks the part. Would have been nicer if I had a smaller wheel. Some guys use the zip blade wheels or reciprocating saws. They're nice for it as well. But you can see there is a bit of a gap here. I like to have a bit of a gap on my welds. I don't like it to butt off anywhere. It's a bit tight there. In that spot there. But if you got a bit of a gap, you got some room for the two metals to want to move either way. A lot of times if they're butted together and they welds, they wants to push together, and then that's where you get a lot of tuck work from. So, but that's it. I'm going to go ahead now and get that all welded in, and we'll bring it back and I'll show you what it looks like. I got it all welded in. I just started working my way around it. Again, when you come to corners, you don't weld here and weld here type thing on the corners. You always got to skip your corners. This is the reason why people have trouble with corners, is they put too much heat in this area. A weld here and a weld here is still an inch apart, okay? So, you know, you turn around, you weld here, you weld here, and you weld here. You have to put in 3 welds in that spot. It's the reason why fellas have trouble with the corners dropping. They don't crack, okay? Corners don't crack on stuff like this. That was an aviation thing. It has to be done on planes because there's so much vibration, and it's all aluminum welding, and aluminum's kind of, the welds are usually hard, and so they can't have no corners on them. That was the reasoning for that. But a lot of guys still round the corners. You want to round the corners? Fine. I've never had no issues with it. To me, it's just a simple way of just putting patches in there, okay? I got that all welded in there now. I'm going to go ahead now and get that all dressed up. And there you go. Got it all done. That's what was there. I took this off and I flipped it over. Look, there's another piece on the bottom of that. They went and jammed a piece in behind that there and welded it on to the bottom, filling up a little gap that was there on the top corner. That's how they done it. Wild. Anyway, but that's done. That looks good there. Now, is it perfect? Far from it, okay? Because if you can hold that there like that, you can see there's a little bit of small lowness right where I welded it. See it on there? Nothing to worry about. That's normal, okay? People are hung up on perfection when it comes to this. If you want to, I can get in behind that and dolly that all up now and file that and do all that and spend hours tapping that up. Yes, you can. Okay, you're going to be doing body work to this. That is minor for body work, okay? That's a very good repair. Not have to worry about it. This is what most of everything that I does is like this here, because I know I got to body work it afterwards with filler and primers and stuff like that, right? You can spend hours upon hours upon hours making this perfect, okay? If you're into it, that's what you can do, okay? That is a skill in itself, and it's very, very time consuming, okay? I got that all welded in. That piece is all done. Now I can move on to this mess down here. Now I've been sizing things up here. It's out too far there. It's down too low here. It's the way the piece is welded in it. It's tucked up behind it and then welded along, so the overlap is this way. This bottom section is welded up solid, okay? There's a big chunk of metal on the bottom, so there's a bottom in that, and it's pretty heavy, okay? It's a heavy-duty repair. It wasn't going to go, I can guarantee you that, but it's not for what we want. This is the biggest thing for us, is this here and this repair here. So this whole section is off, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cleave out this entire section on the top all the way around, get rid of all that, because I'm going to have to rework that bottom section. I may have to replace it, but for now I'm trying to save what I can. So I'm just going to go ahead, cut this out of it, cut the bottom out of it, and just have a strip gone out of the entire section and get myself into some good metal, and then I can go from there. Well, I've been busy. I cut the piece out of it. Man, oh man, whoever built this built it strong. Got the pieces welded in there. It's all galvanized tin they made in there, and it's all really heavy stuff. It's a decent job building it, but like the finish and the few problems that I had to be addressed anyway. I was going to cut the works out of it and start from scratch, but it's pretty well built. I'm going to leave as is. I'm just going to tidy up this outer section. I left the bottom alone. I ended up cutting off the bottom section here, and right here on the bottom I cut this off here. So then I was left with what I did then is I tucked in this corner and I tapped it in along here to bring this in, okay, to get it shape again, because I had the entire bottom cut out of it now. So you can see the way this shape came over and it tipped forward. Now it tips back. So I moved this corner, outside corner, back a bit by just tapping this inside corner in here and bringing that back. So now I got a good fit there, going down along there. I got my height figured out. Here. I got this tapped up to line up with this again. I'm after closing this up. It's pretty wild stuff was in it, like this stuff here, look, all galvanized. It's pretty thick, look at it. It's thick stuff that was in there. So I got that straightened away, and so that there is just a matter of now stripping over the top of that there, making a piece to fit in there. But I'm going to continue on here now and cut this section out as well, over back as far as here, cut it down along here. I'm going to leave the lip here, but I'm going to get rid of this here. I'm going to try to dolly this section here up a bit more, and then I'll put a strip right around the entire bottom side of it. I'll go ahead and get that all cut out, and then we'll get started on putting a piece in there. Well, that escalated. I don't know where to end this here. All this is really solid. It's not pretty, but it's solid, okay? I'm not going to get cutting into the bottom of this here. All this here is tied into the floor work that's done to it. I'm concentrating on the outer body. I cut all this out of it. Up here was all welded on. That's the reason why it was all warped up here. So I got this here. This is nice going up along here now. I have a lot of work to do with the back of this cab. There's a lot of issues going on, but I'm just concentrating from here over right now. I'm not going to think about none of that. No, you don't see none of that. That's perfect from there over. Look. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to have to make a piece to go over this here to cap all this. I got to weld it down the corner. I got to cap the end of it here and clean this up, paint all this in here. I'm going to do it this time. And yeah, that's pretty well it. I had to get a piece of steel now to fit that. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and weld these corners on, cap the bottom of it, get that all welded up. There's not a lot here that I can show you. I'm just trying to fix up somebody else's interesting metal work. And I don't want to go too much into detail because I don't want to go falling down a rabbit hole here now if I keep going the way I'm going here. Because I cut the corner out of it over here because it's a small spot, and then I started looking at it, so I got to put a piece over here and a piece over here, so I just cut it off. There's a couple of ragged spots in along here I didn't like. The way it was when you looked inside and you looked down into the corner. Like this here is supposed to be an open pocket, and they had stuff all jagged, so I chopped all that out of it, right? So anyway, I'll continue on for another while, and I'll bring you back when I'm so much farther ahead again. I got a few things done. I went ahead and I got this all welded up down on the bottom here. It's hard to see, but the bottom side's all welded up down there. And I got that all prepped in around there, ready for the panel. Then I went ahead and I made a panel. Nothing spectacular about that panel. Okay? That's all it is. I just turned around and took a large piece that was too long, too high, and I fit it and shaped it. And then I ran a marker along the bottom of it. And then I turned around and I trimmed it up. I marked the marker along here, marker along the end there, and I trimmed it up. And because if you look at that there, it's kind of hard to see, but that is not a flat piece of metal anymore, okay? So, like, when you stand up, like when I lay that down there, you can actually see this got a curvature to it and is angled this way here as well. And I just done that with a large piece. And I just tweaked it. And instead of, like, making a template for it, I just used a large piece of metal. So now that I got that there sorted, that will go on like so. I'll turn around, do a cut to fit on some of that, cut the butt on some of it, and get that in place. But up on this end is the big thing now. I want to get that straightened away, and then I'll work my way around to the back side of it. I'm probably going to tack weld it in place, and then start doing like a cut to fit, or cut and butt on this end here, to get this end here right, and then work my way across the top and across the bottom at the same time, and work my way around to that side over there. So I'll get this ready now so I can get it welded in. So here's where I'm to. I got this positioned in place. It overlaps everywhere. This piece is still bigger and it's even longer. I'm going to have to trim this to fit as I'm going. All I was concerned about is that it's not going to run uphill on me. So I got it clamped in place where I think I'm close, and I clamped it there and I clamped it there. Then I put a spot weld on the bottom and a spot weld on the top. I'm going to concentrate on this section up here first, get that all welded in, and then I'm going to move back here. Back here now, you can see it's all hanging off. It's too long, all that type of stuff. But I'll trim all that as I come around. It's a lot easier to do it that way than it is to try to cut that to fit and clamp it in place and tack weld it in place. I got 4 sides going on here, and I got a curvature going on here, and I just want to simplify it. I've got a position where I think it's going to fit. I'm going to concentrate on getting this section up here done, and then I'll move around the side. I clamped it in place, and what I did then is I come up here and I made the cuts up here, and I started to want to bring this whole panel in together, up here and down here, because it's not that wide. And I'm trying to basically bring this panel around this way here, working my way back through the panel. Not worried about nothing back here. As long as that I got enough material down there that it's not going to, it's getting close there now, see? I have run into problems with that now. Down here, look. I'm running out of room there, so I think just some in the top side here. I'll work the top up here, get the top pushed down, and I should get it. But I'll cross that bridge anyway. But I wanted to get all this flush mounted here. Now there's not a lot of material in here to overlap. So when I cut that, there's just a sliver inside there. I can get at it from up inside the cab here to get all them pieces out if I need be. Same with down here. Up here now there might be a little strip that I got to remove, but I'm not concerned about it because I can get at it from the other side. So that's basically what I'm doing here now, and I'm going to work my way around the side here and see if I can get all this here to fit next. Now I'm just going to go ahead because this video is getting really long. I want to finish this piece off so I can get a video out to you guys. So I'm going to go ahead now and do the same thing I did here along the side here and along the bottom here and get that piece mounted in place. There you have it. There's nothing tricky or nothing there. I just worked my way across and just tweaked it. I'm very pleased with how it came out. It's got a real nice transition going along here. Oh, that's nice. So now that I got all that welded in place, where it's going to be, I can go back now and start welding all that in some. And there you have it, all welded up again, brand new. I'm pleased with that. I did do a lot of welding more than I usually do, and it did tuck a small bit along here. This here was wavy anyway up here, the panel, but I did have a small bit of a tuck here. Nothing to worry about. It's 10 times better than it was. Out here in the front, it came out really nice. All this here is really good out here. Run your hand down across that there, got a nice door seam. Look down this edge here now, nice consistent line going down the edge of the door here, right? And then the actual panel is the same height as the door itself. But that's that there. A lot of work I got done on this here now. I got the cab corner put in, I welded that up over there. I reconfigured this entire area over here. That was a nightmare. And then I turned around and I welded up the scattered hole here and there on it. So there's been a fair bit of work done on this one. I'm going to continue on and try to get some more work done on this. But this is where I'm going to leave this one here. There was a lot of stuff done. And I'm into the tedious stuff. I'm going to repeat the entire process on the other side as well. So we'll see if I'll take you along on that one, because it's going to be more of the same. But anyway, and there you have it. I hope the tips were good. And until next time.